What's up, contractors? I noticed that more and more of you guys are integrating drones into your business, and I think that's great. But I want to go over the importance of having a pre-flight checklist. And some of you guys might think it's overkill, but it's not. It's going to ensure that you have a safe flight and don't crash your $1,000 plus drone real early on in the process. So, let's get into this a little bit here. We are going to use the Mavic 2 Pro, still in the box here. This is the way I carry it for several reasons. It kind of forces me into some good habits. So, the first thing I'm going to do when I open this box is I'm going to check the battery level on the drone itself by hitting this button in the middle here, and that green circle indicates it's fully charged. I'm also going to look at the spare battery that's in this box, hit the center button, and know that that's fully charged. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the drone out of the box here, and I'm going to open up the drone here. And the first thing I'm going to go to is the gimbal cover right here. Make sure you take it off. So when you power up the drone, this camera turns and twists and does a bunch of motions initially. And if you leave this cover on here, you can damage the gimbal and damage the camera. So put that on your pre-flight checklist, pull that off. Okay. The next thing I do is I kind of just do an overall damage assessment of the drone. I look for any marks or scars or scrapes on the battery especially. If you get damage to the outside of this battery, it can catch on fire in the air. Really, really critical. I know these batteries are expensive, but don't fly damaged batteries. So I'm going to look at my motors here, and like I said, just in general, everything looks to be in pretty good condition to me. I would consider it flight worthy. The next thing I'm going to do is, because when it's in the box, you have to pull the blades off, but I kind of like that for several reasons. Number one, it forces me to manually inspect each and every blade. So I'm going to look at these, and if you have small little nicks, that's fine. You really want to look for like stress cracks, and I have this little guy here. This is for a DJI Spark, and it's hard to see, but there is a crack about halfway down on this blade here, and it's sitting in my drawer because even though it seems to be minor, once you're up in the air and you got pressure on this blade now, it can break at that crack, and if that happens, you're going to fall right out of the air and crash your drone. So do not fly with cracked blades. So each individual one of these blades, blade by blade, I'm going to inspect before I put on the drone. Also, these blades are directional, so as you can see here, there's a green circle around the opening here. I'm sorry, a gray circle. And then on the motor here, there are some gray lines, and that tells you which prop goes where. Actually, it won't let you put on the props in the wrong order anyway, but just a little hint there. They are directional. And let me get the rest of the blades on here. Okay, so the drone itself now is basically ready to fly. The last thing I'm going to talk about real quick, just because I just saw it, is you want to open up this doorway here on the side of the drone, make sure your SD card is in there. What happens with me anyway is after I collect my picture of a property, I eject the SD card, put it in my computer, and I upload the pictures. And sometimes you can forget to put that SD card back in there. And if your drone doesn't have internal memory, that can be a real problem. So make sure one's in there, but even moreover, just like your batteries, carry a spare SD card, so in case you forget to put it back in there, you got a spare. It can really disrupt your day if you're not prepared all the way. So let's move on to the next thing, the controller. The first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to hit this button in the upper right hand corner, and I'm going to look at my battery. It is 98% charged. That's a good thing. Let's open up the controller here, take out the sticks, and get these put on here. They just screw into place on each side. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to hook up my tablet. Now guys, I recommend having a dedicated device to fly with. I do not recommend flying with your phone because if your phone rings, it disrupts the DJI Go app, the flight app, And especially if you're flying to where you can't see the drone, or if you're around a lot of trees or something, that can be very disruptive. So I use a tablet here that's specific to flying, so I'm never disturbed in the middle of my flight. Now, if you're using a tablet, sometimes it can't fit under the tablet how most people fly. So I got this nifty little thingamabobber. I don't know what it's called, but it's great. I will get the name and I will put it in the description section below. So the thingamabobber can go where you usually mount the phone, and now it expands up here so you can put a bigger screen in there and not have it all awkward in your hands. So my hands are still normal here, and the thingamabobber expands to accommodate this tablet here. The next thing, this just bit me a couple days ago. Make sure you have extra cords you carry. If you don't have a cord, you can't connect the controller to your tablet or your phone. So normally I have one of these in my car to charge my phone, and that's the same one I use for the tablet, but it got taken out for whatever reason. And we had to make a special trip out to Walmart because I didn't have a cord. So have an extra one of those. So now you take your cord, you plug in the USB to the bottom of the controller, and then in this case the Apple side into the side of the tablet. And we're actually going to fire it up and go through that routine. So the next thing you want to do is you want to pull out your antennas here and set them up just like this. And then we're going to turn on the controller. We're going to turn on the tablet. And we're going to turn on the drone. As soon as your device opens, you want to figure out what app you're going to use to fly with. The DJI Go 4 is the most common, so that's what we'll bring up here in this example. Right now, the controller has found the drone, and now we're just waiting for the iPad to open. And now it's open, and we can pull up the DJI Go 4 app. You want to make sure you can see the screen okay? Okay, so the app is opening here. And it takes a minute, so be patient. Okay, and normally it'll pop up, go fly. You want to hit this button. And then what's really important to do is some warnings might pop up here. But this was what I was hoping for. Now, there's a red mark up here, and if you look at the compass, it says the compass needs to be calibrated. That happens on a very regular basis. So if that happens, it's really, really easy. Just hit the calibrate button. Start calibration. And what you need to do is it's a series of rotations of the drone. The first rotation, you just pick it up, and you just do a complete circle. Like that. The screen then indicates that you need to flip the drone on its side and do the same thing. So now, we're going to flip it on its side, spin it around all the way, set it back down, and wait for the screen to say calibration is complete, which it's not stating. So I'm going to put it on its side and do that one more time. Okay, calibration's complete. Now it says ready to go. It's in green, so you're good to go. But I'm just going to tap on this real quick and make sure everything looks good. Everything's good to go. And now you're ready to take off. So from that standpoint, you want to make sure that says green and ready to fly before you take off. So now that I kind of walked you through that, let me get back to my pre-flight checklist and make sure I'm not missing anything. So we went over checking the battery level of the remote, have a separate phone or tablet. We went over those things, extra cords, thingamabobber, definitely got to have the thingamabobber, memory card. Okay, So I guess the next thing to consider here is the weather. You want to be aware of the weather. The Mavic 2 is actually pretty impressive in the wind. I don't recommend flying it in super high winds, but it can. Be aware of your surroundings, trees, buildings, power lines, things like that. You wouldn't believe. Sometimes power cables that go to houses and certain things can be kind of hard to see, surprisingly hard to see. And so you just always want to be aware of your surroundings before you take off. Another thing is, if you fire up your drone, and let me just take off this tablet real quick. It's not going to show you this because that's not the case right now, but sometimes on a controller it can say in NFC, and what that means is you're in a no-fly zone. And what happens then is when you go to fire up the engines on the drone, it won't even allow you to start it. You cannot fly in a no-fly zone unless you have your Part 107 pilot's license, which I have, and then you want to use an app like Kitty Hawk. I really recommend that app, and you can use the program called Lance. That's the program that the FAA has to get where you can get access to restricted airspace. And so what you might want to do is you might want to use an app like Kitty Hawk or something like that to look at the airspace prior to driving out there to make sure that you're not going to have any problems in that particular airspace. And if so, get permission before you go out there. That way you're not wasting a trip. So it does happen. Definitely something to be aware of. When you turn the drone on, it's important that it says ready to fly. You may need to do a calibration of the compass or whatever. Your return to home settings. If you're going to use that, you need to make sure it's all set up correctly, especially like your altitude, because the return home altitude is going to be whatever you set it at. I like to have that altitude like super high, because why not? I want to make sure I'm going to be able to fly over all trees and structures and whatever, so I'll set mine to like 350 feet. And what's going to happen is if you hit like the return to home option, or you can set it up internally to where if you have a poor signal between the controller and the drone, it'll automatically fly home. So what's going to happen is whatever the altitude is, let's say it's at 100 feet, and it goes into return to home mode, it'll fly up to whatever you programmed in there, 350 feet. It'll fly a straight line to its takeoff point, its takeoff position, and then it'll come down in a straight position. Now going into that is where, it's important to know how to do some advanced flying, sport mode in particular. Now the reason we're transitioning into this subject right now is whenever you're in any kind of an automated flight program, sport mode is the way you get manual control over the drone again. So let's say you're returning to home and maybe you got a poor GPS signal or something, and so it's a little bit off its course, and now it's landing and it's going to hit something, a tree, car, whatever. What you can do is you can flip it into sport mode. That will give you stick input control again, and now you can pitch it or roll it and bring it to a safe place to land it. And so sport mode also like doubles the power, and it makes the stick input a lot more sensitive. It can make it a lot easier to crash, but sport mode is great, especially if you have to fly in high wind. Let's say, for example, maybe you're driving a few hours to do some drone work and it's really windy, and you don't want that to ruin your whole day. I've had this drone in ridiculous wind, and it can be tough to fly, so it takes practice. So practice your sport mode before doing that. And also, guys, there is some other programs out there you can use. There's a great company called Certify you guys might want to look into, especially as roofers, because what that does is it's automated flight. The drone will actually go up above the structure. It will, collect your pictures and roof measurements, etc. So you may want to look into Certify. Also, Drone Deploy is real great for real large projects because it does like mapping. So say you have a large commercial roof, it will take a bunch of pictures in an automated way, and it'll stitch all those images together at the end to give you one comprehensive overview. So anyway, guys, roofers, people that are getting into drone flight, really important. Have a pre-flight checklist. I guarantee you one of the issues that we talked about will bite you in the butt at some point. I think you should go through a checklist every time. You can actually get apps like Kitty Hawk where you can make your pre-flight checklist right in the program, and you'll have to walk through it before you use the drone, so it ensures that you're going to have a safe flight and you don't crash your $1,000 plus drone. So I hope you guys thought this video was useful. A lot of the information that we talked about, we'll have links down below that will go into those things in a little bit more detail. If you guys want me to elaborate on anything more, just leave a comment in the section below here. I'll be happy to shoot another video. And also, please subscribe to my YouTube channel so the next time we put out a really good video, you guys can see it. I hope you thought this video was helpful, and I'm excited that you guys are flying drones. I think it's going to change the business, and good luck to you guys, and I'll talk to you soon.